Alright everybody, so this week Marvel Studios released their newest, and in this case smallest hero to date with Ant-Man, and because this has become something of a tradition around here, I'm Joel and I'm here to count down and look at all the different Easter eggs, references, and in-jokes that make these Marvel movies so much fun, so strap in and join me, why don't you? So, starting things off with the cold opener of the movie, we have a meeting of S.H.I.E.L.D. bigwigs comprised of Peggy Carter, Captain America's girlfriend, who also played pretty big in the Ant-Man prequel comic, a much older version of Howard Stark, here played by Slattery and not by Dominic Cooper, and finally a third man who should be familiar to longtime Ant-Man fans. That guy's name is Mitch Carson. In the comics, Mitch was a S.H.I.E.L.D. operative who was actually supposed to become the third Ant-Man, Hank Pym having built him a special suit and everything, but the suit got stolen by Eric O'Grady, the irredeemable Ant-Man. Could this possibly mean we could see Grady down the line, maybe in a sequel? Who knows? I know I would personally like to see it, and heck, if they could make Yellow Jacket into a villain in this one, why not make Irredeemable Ant-Man into a villain? It wouldn't be much of a stretch. Another very interesting thing to consider about this opening scene is that it was actually part of some script leaks early on, and apparently this scene was also supposed to have Alexander Pierce and Armin Zola present for this meeting. For the next bit, we're going to have to turn our eyes to the actual Marvel logo, and that is that it's actually different here for Ant-Man. We actually get an original one just for this movie, wherein the logo shrinks and is then beset on all sides by a bunch of ants. I have to wonder if this will be the new normal moving on. For Captain America Civil War, we're going to see a bunch of stars and stripes alongside the Marvel logo. Might be cool. This next Easter egg is a number one, and considering that Edgar Wright was once attached to the project and Edgar Wright loves his numbers, I'm willing to think that these were super intentional. You see, Scott Lang's prison number is 56210. Hank Pym's first appearance in the comics was the 10th of January 1962. We also find out later in the movie that Pym gives his armies of ants numbers, not names. One such ant is number 247. This is important because Hank Pym first appeared in Tales to Astonish number 27, while Scott Lang himself appeared in Marvel Premiere 47. And speaking of Tales to Astonish, Darren Cross makes reference to that title when he's talking about Hank Pym's past exploits, saying they were more than propaganda, they were Tales to Astonish. Next up, we have something of a Hulk connection here. Scott Lang walks by a poster for Pinko Dose, which is the soda we saw in the Incredible Hulk. This is noteworthy for a couple reasons. One, Marvel doesn't make all that much reference to the Incredible Hulk. And two, because Ant-Man has more or less kind of been sitting around since Phase 1, you have to wonder if at some point this movie was supposed to take place earlier on in the Marvel Cinematic Timeline. Obviously, later in the movie, Hank Pym puts the whole timeline question to rest in what is probably one of the funniest scenes of the movie, and also probably one of the best meta jokes where he hand waves away why him and Scott just can't go to the Avengers for help. Why? Well, because they're probably busy dropping cities on places, which is of course one giant reference to the events of Age of Ultron. Now, in the Baskin-Robbins scene, Scott Lang is seen wearing a name tag that reads Jack, a fake name which can only be a reference to Ant-Man co-creator Jack Kirby, or if we want to stretch it a little bit, maybe just maybe a reference to the Marvel character Jack of Hearts, who killed Lang in the comics. This next Easter egg is a bit of a blink and you'll miss it, but the hotel wherein Scott and all of his ex-con friends are staying at, well, that's called the Milgram Hotel, which is a reference to famous Marvel creator Al Milgrom. He was a writer, penciler, inker, and all-around a cool Marvel dude. Man, is it just me, or are hotels like a really popular way to work in famous comic writers and artists' names, am I right? For this next Easter egg, I kinda gotta give full credit to What Culture for figuring out that in the old footage of Ant-Man on his past missions, we get a flag that looks like one used by the Ten Rings. This would seek to paint a pretty interesting picture to how long the terrorist organization has been around for. And perhaps if references keep getting dropped, maybe, just maybe, we will see the real non-Ben Kingsley Mandarin sooner rather than later. Sadly, I don't have a good screenshot for this next one, but while we're on the subject of the Ten Rings, apparently Luis's friend Carlos is also sporting a Ten Rings tattoo. If you remember in Iron Man 2, we saw a thug with a very similar looking neck tattoo, so we can take this to mean either this is a leftover from when Ant-Man was supposed to come in Phase 1, or maybe, just maybe, this thug also did some time in Seagate, the prison where Trevor Slattery was housed and where he ended up meeting agents of the real Mandarin in All Hail the King. The van in which Scott and his team used to pull off their many different heists also has a little bit of an Easter egg going on, and the song that plays when the horn is honked is La Cucaracha, which in English translates to the cockroach, another small tiny crawling insect. And you know what, while we're on the subject of musical jokes, Ant-Man had more than a few. When Louise is trying to remain inconspicuous inside the building, he starts humming "It's a Small World After All." Much like Age of Ultron with its no strings, this is yet another Disney song reference. During the big Ant-Man Yellow Jacket fight near the end of the movie, we also get The Cure's Disintegration. And the movie's official soundtrack has Adam and the Ants, and there's also a piece of music entitled Honey, I Shrunk Myself. Now let's talk about Darren Cross for a second. In the comics, he was a big pink giant. Here he takes the identity of Yellow Jacket being one of the many identities used by Hank Pym. Then there's Hope Van Dyne, who I've read many reviews incorrectly say that she's an original character created for this movie. That's not exactly true. You see, Hope does exist in the comics, just in an alternate universe in the comics wherein she called herself Hope Pym, and she was kind of a villain called the Red Queen. Janet's bob haircut is of course a reference to her mother, Janet Van Dyne, the original Wasp and one of the original members of the Avengers team. Falcon Sam Wilson gets a great cameo in this movie, as does the new Avengers HQ that we saw get established at the end of Age of Ultron. So while the microverse is still locked up in the Fantastic Four catalog of things they're not exactly allowed to use in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we do get what is essentially the microverse, only here they call it the Quantum Realm, the place wherein Janet Van Dyne ends up getting trapped and Scott briefly visits. Also, keeping with the Phase 2 theme of characters losing their arms, Yellow Jacket ends up getting his crushed into nothing before Scott ends up visiting the Quantum Realm. Near the tail end of the movie, we find out that Darren Cross is hoping to sell his Yellow Jacket technology to Hydra. Hydra that have been hammered on all throughout Phase 2 and are now a shadow of their former selves. One can only assume maybe this new movie branch we're seeing is being led by Baron Zemo and will get more play in Civil War. Of course, it wouldn't be a Marvel movie without Stan Lee's cameo, and Ant-Man actually waits a pretty long time to drop the Stan Man on us. It's near the tail end of the movie where we can see Stan working as a bartender. The next Easter egg is definitely the one that's going to be getting a lot of people talking, yet it's the one that people in my theater seem to have missed completely. That is, during Louise's flashback, we hear a woman say, "We have guys who can jump, guys who can swing, and guys who can crawl up walls." Could this possibly be a reference to Spider-Man? I certainly think so. And finally, in the post-credits scene, we are reintroduced to Bucky the Winter Soldier, who Cap and Falcon have managed to track down. Now, it's in this scene that Falcon and Cap make reference to not being able to go and get Tony's help because of Accords, which makes me wonder if this actually takes place during the events of Civil War and laws have already been passed. And with that, that'll just about do it here for this Ant-Man Easter egg hunt. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had some fun. In the comment section down below, sound off and tell me what your favorite Easter egg was. Until next time, everyone, I'm Joel the Comic Book Cast. Thanks for watching.
So thank you for watching the video, and if you guys like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you haven't already, check out some of these other great videos we have on the channel. Just click the annotation right there, it'll take you to them. Thank you for watching, guys, and have a good one.